Hey guys, tonight we're heading to Ash Grove, Oregon. A quiet town where time moves like molasses, and the biggest excitement most weeks is the sound of someone winning 10 bucks on a scratch-off at the corner store. But tonight, that calm gets pierced by a story so tangled, so quietly horrifying, you might just double-check your locks before bed. You'll follow the unraveling of a young woman's life. Lana Carter, she's 25, easy to miss in a crowd, but hand her a set of darts and she transforms. The kind of local bar legend who never missed the bullseye and never liked attention. Just small-town talent with small-town dreams. No scandals, no enemies, no reason to be afraid. Until she dies, violently, on a normal Thursday. Now, I know we throw around phrases like "you probably won't survive this," but tonight, it's different. Because what happens to Lana didn't start with a struggle. It started quietly, with admiration, then obsession, then a chain of men each claiming it wasn't their fault. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who else is up. Way too late thinking about lipstick on walls. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It starts where it always starts in towns like this, at the bowling alley. Because Ash Grove doesn't have a professional darts league. But every Thursday night at Jensen's pub, the back room becomes something sacred. You're standing there now, neon lights buzz overhead. A jukebox wheezes out 80s hits. No one's updated in decades. The air smells like pickled eggs and shoe leather. And Lana, she's the queen of it all. She lines up a throw, perfect form. She doesn't blink. The dart lands center with a satisfying thunk. That's her gift: cold hands, warm smile, and nerves like stone. Her fiancé, Brandon Wells, is standing just behind her, watching like he always does. Brandon's a tall guy, wears his work boots everywhere. Drywall dust usually clinging to his collar. They met here a few years back. He lost a round. She bought him a beer, and the rest, as the cliche goes, is history. But it's more than romance. Brandon adores her, tells people she's the reason he stopped drinking so much, started saving, got serious about life. The two of them move into a cozy little house on Tamarack Drive, not fancy, but solid. They talk about a wedding, kids, maybe a dog. Lana keeps working her retail job, still plays darts on Thursdays, still smiles at everyone who walks past her in town. And then, April 18th, 2002, you wake up in her shoes that morning. Light spills through the bedroom blinds. Brandon kisses your forehead before heading to work, and everything feels routine safe. You water the plants, eat half a grapefruit, maybe flip through a bridal magazine you won't admit you're tired of already. At noon, Brandon swings by the house. He's gotta run to his sister's place, a pipe burst or something. You walk him to the car. He says he'll be back by dinner. You never make it that far. Because when Brandon returns, hours later, he finds you slumped against the living room wall. Not sleeping, not unconscious, gone. Your throat is slashed clean through. Blood puddled under you like a red halo. And on the wall above your head, smeared in bright lipstick. One word, numberone. Now, that's where things start to spin. Police arrive fast. Brandon's wailing in the yard. The neighbors are all out in their pajamas. People who haven't spoken in years start whispering. Who would do this? Why? Lana. Sweet. Dart playing Lana. Let's zoom out for a second. In 2002, forensic DNA is decent, but not spectacular. Unless someone leaves behind a driver's license and a signed confession, cases like this often float. The only physical evidence of real interest: some skin cells and DNA scraped from under Lana's fingernails. A struggle. It seems she fought back, good girl, but no match. Not in the national database, not in town, not even close. And here's where you hit your first twist: the lipstick. Forensic analysts confirm it was Lana's own lipstick. So either she wrote the word herself with the last strength in her body, or someone used it post-mortem as some kind of message. Police consider it a signature, possibly the killer's calling card. Here's where your mind starts spinning at 3. Nay? Because why that word, numberone? What's it mean? Was she someone's number one? Or was someone trying to say they were? Historians still argue whether Renaissance poisoners favored red wine over arsenic for aesthetic reasons. But here in Ash Grove, we're wondering if a murderer favored lipstick over blood to send a clearer message, and it gets worse. Turns out, not long before her death, Lana had taken out a life insurance policy, $600, 0,000, payable only to Brandon. He didn't know it was invalid yet, but to police, it looks suspicious as hell. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to do the math. Fiancé dies. Big payout pending. Brandon's conveniently out of the house. The public starts drawing conclusions faster than you can say Dateline NBC. But wait, there's more. Brandon's alibi, it holds. His sister confirms. So does her neighbor, the plumber. Even the Domino's delivery guy who saw his truck parked outside for hours. He couldn't have done it. And just like that, Ash Grove goes quiet again for 11 years. But don't relax just yet, because DNA, it's about to catch up. 11 years is a long time to wait for a whisper from the dead in Ash Grove. People eventually stopped flinching when they drove past Lana's old house on Tamarack. New folks moved in, painted the door, planted daffodils where the blood once pooled. But every now and then at the grocery store, at church, at Jensen's pub, someone would say it again under their breath. Remember Lana Carter? You don't forget something like that. A beautiful young woman murdered in her own home. A fiancé with a motive, but no opportunity. A lipstick word that still no one can explain. It stayed a local mystery until technology did what small-town justice couldn't. In 2013, a team of lab techs in Colorado processed an unrelated DNA sample from a routine university assault case. Standard kit, routine procedure, the kind of thing that usually takes weeks to sort. But this time, something strange happens. One of the DNA markers flags an old entry, an unsolved homicide from Oregon. A sample pulled from under a victim's fingernails. Female, age 25. Date of death, April 18th, 2002. Lana Carter. You're sitting in a Denver lab when they realize it's a hit. It's quiet at first. Lab guys don't shout, but you can feel the air tighten. Someone found the ghost. The name, Damon Lyle. 27 at the time of the match. A Juilliard-trained opera student, lives in a clean little condo. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, no arrests. Just an unusually beautiful baritone and a habit of attending obscure music festivals across the Pacific Northwest. And, as it turns out, a brief stay in Ash Grove during the exact week Lana died. So how do you explain that? Detectives fly out. They knock on his door. Damon opens it like he's been waiting. He doesn't run, doesn't ask for a lawyer. He just invites them in and offers coffee. That's when the story gets weird. Damon tells the detectives he remembers Lana, not by name, but by event. According to him, it was an attack by her. He says he was at a bus stop after a local folk concert in Ash Grove back in 2002, waiting to catch a ride back to his Airbnb. Lana, he describes her in detail. Short brown hair, blue hoodie, chipped nail polish, approached him suddenly and accused him of something. What? He claims not to recall. She lunged. They struggled. She scratched him. He pushed her off. Then he left. That's his version. And if you're squinting suspiciously at that explanation right now, so were police. Because a few hours later, he asks to speak to them again, and this time he changes everything. Damon says, "Okay, I killed her." Flat voice, no tears. He says he didn't know her, never met her before that night. But he wasn't acting alone. He'd been hired. Now your brain starts to crawl. Hired? Who hires an opera singer to kill someone? He says it started with a conversation in college. His freshman roommate, Greg Warren, was always talking big. Hustles, gigs, connections. One night, Greg says he got an offer from a client looking for a hit. Someone in Oregon, a woman. Greg says no. But then the offer goes up, $50,000. And Greg, still not wanting to get his hands dirty, asks Damon, would he be interested? Historians still argue whether the Roman Empire fell from moral decay or just really bad spreadsheets. But here we are in modern America, watching a music student allegedly say yes to a murder because tuition's expensive. Damon claims Greg gave him a name and a town. He went to Ash Grove. He waited. He followed her. Then one afternoon, when her boyfriend left the house, he knocked on the door. He says Lana didn't scream. She looked at him like she might have known him or recognized something. Maybe a name, maybe a message. But then, he says, she rushed him. He panicked. There was a struggle, and he killed her. This is where you stop breathing for a second, because if this is true, if this story holds, then the person behind it all wasn't Damon. It wasn't Greg. It was whoever paid Greg to find a killer in the first place. Police get a search warrant for Greg's apartment. He's now a freelance coder living in a suburb outside Sacramento. They bring him in. At first, he laughs, says Damon's making it all up. We were dumb kids. He shrugs. But I never asked him to kill anyone. Then they show him the police lineup. 5 photos. Greg points to one. Brandon Wells. Yeah, that Brandon. Now you're sitting on the edge of your too soft mattress, blanket halfway off, wondering what on earth is happening. Because Brandon, the grief-stricken fiancé who cried in the front yard, who lost his alibi only to gain it back, who got cleared, mourned, and tried to move on, just got named as the man who allegedly ordered Lana's murder. Suddenly, the entire story snaps into a new shape. And it's a shape no one in Ash Grove wants to look at too closely. So let's sit with that. Damon admits to the murder. Greg admits to the offer. And they both name Brandon as the source. But remember, that life insurance policy, it was never valid. Brandon never got a cent. So what was he paying for? You're standing in the living room again. It's been 11 years since the murder, but nothing's really changed. Not the shape of the room, not the faded carpet fibers near the wall where the blood once dried. The new owners painted over the damage, but if you look closely enough, you can still make out the faintest shadow under fresh plaster, a ghost stain, and above it, where the original investigators took dozens of photographs. Number own, lipstick red, written in broad, jagged strokes, smudged, like whoever did it was in a hurry or shaking. Back then, it was a signature, a symbol, a riddle. Now, in light of Damon's confession, it might be something else. A trophy, a name, a ranking, or a message. Brandon Wells sits quietly in an interrogation room. It's 2013. The walls are pale and too clean. There's no dramatic lighting, no mirrored glass, just a table, 2 chairs, and a man who once held Lana Carter's hand and promised forever. He leans forward, voice low, I didn't do this. He repeats it, again and again. When shown Damon's signed statement, he doesn't flinch. When they reveal Greg Warren's identification from the photo lineup, he exhales hard, but not in shock. More like exhaustion. Then he says something that chills the air. I always knew they'd come for me again. Historians still argue whether Nostradamus predicted anything useful or just had excellent PR. But Brandon seems like a man who saw this twist coming years before the rest of us. The thing is, there's still no hard evidence. Brandon's fingerprints weren't on the murder weapon. No bank withdrawals tied to $50. How's that? No text messages, no recorded calls, not even a receipt linking him to Greg or Damon. Just words, 2 of them pointing straight at him. So the DA's office hesitates. What do you do with a maybe murderer? You go to trial. In late 2014, Brandon is formally charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Damon Lyle takes the stand first, now dressed in a crisp suit, with short hair and no trace of the shaggy, nervous boy from his booking photo. His voice is steady, operatic. Even, he recounts the killing in detail, the bus stop, the approach, Lana's eyes, the slash, the blood. He remembers writing number own on the wall. He thought it was clever. He says, like a signature track on an album. The courtroom flinches. A few jurors look away. You don't? Then Greg Warren testifies. And suddenly, everything softens. Greg admits that yes, he once joked with Brandon about getting rid of her. It was late. They were drunk. They were in college. Brandon allegedly said something like, she's not who she says she is. I'd pay to be free. Greg swears he didn't take it seriously. But later, a man he doesn't say who gave him an envelope with 10 grand and a note. Half now, half after, Greg says he panicked, tried to ignore it, but Damon overheard and took it into his own hands. It's a convenient story, isn't it? A little too clean, a little too tragic. Brandon's defense team counters hard. They say Greg had an unhealthy obsession with Lana, one rooted in an old online forum where Greg used to frequent dart championship streams. Back in the early 2000s, niche sports forums were full of anonymous admiration and low-level stalking. One of the usernames on Lana's old fan page, 1, And what does that sound like? Number on. See where this is going. You're in the jury now, confused and tired, but trying to follow the logic. Brandon's team says Greg orchestrated the whole thing not for money, but out of twisted infatuation. He saw Lana at tournaments, maybe even tried to message her. Maybe she ignored him. Maybe she even blocked him. Unrequited attention can curdle fast. So Greg, feeling small and bitter, recruits Damon, eager, strange, already spiraling to finish what he couldn't start himself. It would explain why no money was ever found, why the insurance policy didn't matter, why Greg kept everything so distant. Because it wasn't about profit, it was about rejection. Historians still argue whether the Trojan War began over a woman or over shipping rights. But in courtrooms like this, love and ego are still the deadliest weapons. Then Lana's mother takes the stand. She's older now, gray at the temples, still wears the locket Lana gave her for Mother's Day in '99. She tells the court that Lana had mentioned someone online, a weird guy who used to comment about her dart grip. Said he gave her the creeps. She never knew his name until today. And just like that, the tide turns again. Now Brandon isn't the villain. He's the echo of grief, the guy who stayed in town, got married again, coached a softball team, went to therapy. Maybe his only crime was talking too loud to the wrong person. Maybe the jury deliberates for 5 days, 5 long days. They return with no verdict, deadlocked. And so Brandon walks out of that courtroom a free man, at least legally. But Ashgrove doesn't forget. Not the town, not the people, not the shadow on the wall, and especially not Lana. You don't get used to ghosts in Ashgrove. Not the creaky house kind, the memory kind. The ones that sit in your neighbor's silence. The ones that show up in the pause after someone says, she was too young. The ones that whisper from under fresh coats of paint. After the trial, Brandon moves away. No public statement, no interviews, just one day. The mailbox on Tamarack Drive is empty for good. But even without him, questions linger like the scent of dust after a room's been sealed too long. You walk through town now, and people don't say his name, not directly. It's always that guy, or the fiance, or you-know-who. At Jensen's pub, they still hang Lana's photo above the dartboard. Her favorite dart's purple flights with silver shafts are framed beneath it, and the word numberone, it's become urban folklore. Some say she wrote it herself. Some say it was Damon's twisted tribute. A few even whisper that Greg wrote it long before the murder, that it was part of something older, maybe something only he understood. But now, we turn the spotlight towards something practical. That life insurance policy. Remember, $600, 000. Sole beneficiary, Brandon. Sounds damning. Motive 101. Except, it was never finalized. Turns out, Lana forgot or never got around to submitting the required medical forms. Her policy remained incomplete, unenforceable, no payout, no check, just a stack of paperwork in a dusty folder marked pending. So now you're back to square one. Why would Brandon kill for something he didn't even get? The prosecution had argued he probably thought it had gone through. That's believable. But is that enough to orchestrate a murder for hire through a guy you barely knew, who then passed it off to an unhinged baritone with a god complex? Even Hollywood would reject that script for being too convoluted. And yet, here we are. Investigators dig deeper. They pull Greg Warren's online activity from the early 2000s. Most of it is benign code forums, music sites, sports boards. But then they find something odd. A handful of chat logs from a defunct message board called Bullseye Talk, a darts forum, small, regional, and buried in the 2001 archives. A thread titled Queen of the Northwest with user W1, obsessively commenting on Lana Carter's tournament videos. She doesn't even know she's being watched. One post reads, creepy, but not illegal. Then another, if I ever met her, I'd kiss her or kill her. Probably both. You sit still for a moment. Just let that sink in. Historians still argue whether the Library of Alexandria burned once or many times. But digital memory, it burns slowly, and it always leaves a trace. The timeline starts to shift. Maybe Greg wasn't just a middleman. Maybe he was the architect. He knew Damon from college, knew he was erratic, vulnerable, and desperate for approval. Maybe he saw in Damon what he needed, a fall guy with shaky morals and no deep ties to Lana. So he plants the idea, feeds him the story. pays him, or maybe just promises to, tells him she's dangerous, she ruined someone's life. You could be the hero. A fringe theory, absolutely, but not an impossible one. And Greg's behavior during the trial, cagey, contradictory. On day 2, he claimed he never knew Lana's name. On day 4, he said he'd seen her once on TV. By day 6, he was admitting to maybe seeing her in person at a tournament. When confronted with the online posts, he denies they're his, but the IP address logs say otherwise. Still, no murder weapon connects to him, no phone records, no text, no clear link between him and the house on Tamarack. All smoke, no match. Which brings us to the moment that changes everything. A podcast. Yep. In 2015, a local true crime enthusiast named Erica Meeks starts a show called Ash Grove After Dark. Low budget, scratchy mic, but it takes off. One episode features an interview with Lana's high school friend, who drops a previously unknown bombshell. Apparently, weeks before her murder, Lana had confided something. She told her friend a guy had approached her at a darts event, not Brandon, not someone from town, just a weird guy in glasses. She thought he was from out of state. He said something like, "You don't remember me, do you?" She didn't, but it stuck with her. And now you wonder, was that Greg? Historians still argue whether Rasputin's final cause of death was poison, gunshot, drowning, or all three. But here, the cause is simpler. Too many men with too many secrets, orbiting one woman like moths circling a flame. Ash Grove PD reopens the file, quietly, no press release. But this time, they've got digital tools. A retired detective re-examines the crime scene photos, zooming in on Lana's bookshelf. There, behind a row of cookbooks, barely visible, is a receipt. A bus ticket from Portland to Ash Grove, dated April 17th, 2002. The name on it, Greg Warren. He'd always claimed he hadn't been in town that week. Now he's caught in a lie. Still, a bus ticket isn't a confession. It's just another thread. Another maybe, another whispered what if in a case drowning in them. But you're beginning to feel it now, aren't you? That chill behind your neck. Because the more we learn, the less we know. And the closer we get to the truth, the more it backs away just out of reach. You wake up one morning and realize you've been thinking about Lana Carter for too long. Maybe it was the podcast episode. Maybe it was the bus ticket. Maybe it was the look in Greg Warren's eyes when he said, "I never met her." A little too fast, a little too defensive. But mostly, it's that feeling that something's off. And so, you do what everyone does when they can't sleep. You dive into internet rabbit holes with names like Lana Carter, Case, Truth, Docs, and Numberone. Theory thread do not delete. Welcome to amateur sleuthing, where every username hides a theory, and every theory sounds half reasonable at 2. Zazio, One theory claims Lana was targeted because of something she saw. Maybe she witnessed something criminal at a bar, a tournament, an alley after closing. Another insists she was part of a secret online poker ring and crossed the wrong coder. A third points to an unsolved assault case in Ash Grove in 1997. Same lipstick, same signature only. This one didn't end in death. Historians still argue whether Queen Elizabeth I wrote her own speeches or dictated them to clever men. But on Reddit, no one argues. They just yell, still. One post stands out. It's buried in a 3-year-old thread titled "The Opera Student Knew More Than He Said." The poster, anonymous, of course, claims to have gone to college with Damon and Greg. Says Greg was obsessed with Lana long before Brandon entered the picture. Apparently, Greg used to print pictures of her, old tournament posters, even cropped headshots from her Facebook page. This was back in the early days of social media, when privacy settings meant you had to literally type the word private in your caption if you wanted to be left alone. According to the post, Greg used to refer to Lana as "my number one." That was his phrase. Said it often, almost like a mantra. And now you pause, because suddenly, number one means something completely different. Not a ranking, not a message from Lana, not even a murderer's boast. It was his name for her, a title, a fixation. So you lean back in your chair, the glow of your screen casting long shadows, and ask the question. No one's really dared ask out loud. Was Greg in love with Lana? Not romantically. Perhaps not even sexually. But in that dangerous way where admiration rots into resentment, where someone becomes more idea than person, where rejection isn't an inconvenience, it's an insult. And if she didn't even know she was rejecting him, all the better. That way, the wound never really closes. Let's rewind. Greg Warren meets Damon Lyle in college. Two smart, strange kids with too much time and too little structure. Damon sings, Greg codes. They drift in and out of each other's lives like orbiting moons. But one thing sticks. Greg talks about a woman back home, a darts champion. You'd love her. He tells Damon, she's brilliant, and she doesn't even know it. And one night, after a few drinks, he adds, she ruined me. Historians still argue whether Van Gogh mailed his severed ear to a woman or to a brothel. But in Greg's case, the only thing he sent was an email with Lana's photo attached. He shows it to Damon, says he's been offered money to take care of something, a bluff, a game, or the seed of a plan. We may never know. But Damon, already unsteady, latches on. Greg feeds him just enough. Help me out. I'll owe you. You want a legacy, right? Damon thinks it's a test, or a dare, or art. And when he boards a Greyhound bound for Ash Grove, carrying a map, a pocket knife, and Lana's schedule handwritten on hotel stationery, the gears are already in motion. Greg never intended to follow. He wanted distance. Plausible deniability. So Damon knocks on Lana's door. She answers. Polite, but cautious. She thinks he's selling something, or maybe just lost. She doesn't recognize him, and that's the final spark. She doesn't remember the thread, the messages, the admiration, the man behind the username. To her, he's nobody, and to some people, being nobody is the one thing they can't forgive. You're back in the living room now. Lana's body, the lipstick, the wall. Damon says he wrote it in panic. But now you wonder, did Greg tell him to write it, or did Damon do it on his own? Because he had heard Greg say those words over and over. Numberon, his muse, his symbol, his curse. Police revisit Greg's search history from 2002 scraped from old ISP backups. They find dozens of entries related to Lana's whereabouts, her match schedule, even her clothing preferences. It's obsessive, creepy, but again, not illegal. There's a pattern forming, but no concrete link. So the court remains stalled. The appeals continue. Greg isn't charged. Brandon remains free. Damon stays in prison, occasionally writing poems that reference swans and shadows and unfinished music. And Lana, she becomes more myth than memory. In Ash Grove, a mural goes up near the old bus stop. Her face painted in soft purples and blues, darts in mid-flight. A quote underneath, supposedly from her last tournament win. You can't miss if you don't doubt. People leave flowers. Teenagers dare each other to take photos near the wall at night. And every once in a while, someone finds the word numberone scrawled in fresh lipstick on a bathroom mirror. No one claims responsibility. No cameras ever catch it. But every time, it's the same shade, the same shape, the same unfinished story. You're starting to see the story now not in a straight line, but like a spider web, threads pulled tight by obsession, guilt, bad timing, and whatever cracked longing passed between three men and one woman who didn't ask for any of it. You walk the streets of Ash Grove differently now. Every face feels like it might know something. Every glance carries a shadow. The case may be officially under appeal, but out here in the real world, it's folklore, it's fear, it's unfinished. Back in Denver, where Damon Lyle is serving his sentence, something strange happens. A letter arrives. No return address, no fingerprints, just one sentence scrawled across the back of a torn music program from a student recital. You were never meant to do it. He lied. Prison staff log it. They scan the note, and they alert the Oregon DA's office. Damon's reaction, quiet. But afterward, he stops cooperating with appeals. No more statements, no more interviews, just silence. You wonder, was that Greg? A confession wrapped in cowardice, or someone else entirely? Historians still argue whether the Rosetta Stone unlocked languages or simply gave colonialists something to argue over. But here, we're trying to unlock motive, and it keeps slipping through our fingers. Let's turn back to Lana for a moment. She wasn't flashy. She didn't crave fame, but she was good. Consistently, frustratingly good. Tournament after tournament, she kept showing up, kept winning, kept rising, and sometimes that's all it takes to become a target. In a 2001 interview, Lana once said, "I don't really believe in luck, just rhythm, muscle memory, and keeping your heart quiet." The reporter, amused, asked Ori what she meant by that. She laughed and said, "It means nobody can shake you if you've already decided they don't own a piece of you." That quote never ran. The piece was scrapped when the paper changed editors, but it resurfaced later after her death, when that same reporter dug out the original tape from a shoebox labeled Unfiled Legends. Now it's etched into her memorial plaque at Jensen's. And here's the part no one talks about. In the weeks before she died, Lana had started acting different, more anxious, checking over her shoulder, canceling matches last minute. A coworker said she'd started asking strange questions about out-of-state IDs, names that didn't appear on her match sheets. She even asked her boss for help reviewing the security camera footage outside the store. Why? We don't know, but someone was watching her. Let's talk about that security tape. It was old-school VHS style, grainy footage. Most of it degraded years ago, but one segment survived. Copied and archived during the original investigation, it shows a man pacing outside the store the night before her murder, face partially obscured by a hoodie. He doesn't go inside, he just waits. He's holding something in his hand, something small, a lipstick tube. Police never identified him. Too blurry, too dark. But here's the strange part. The brand was later found in Greg's college dorm years after he'd moved out, still sealed. Same shade, same line, coral kiss. Coincidence? Greg's defenders. He has a few, mostly online, say yes. Lots of people use that shade. They argue, and Greg's sister wore it. But when detectives contact her, she denies it, swears she never used lipstick at all. So why did Greg have it? You're in his old room now. Your imagination reconstructs it. Outdated posters, computer towers with blinking lights, piles of CDRs with scratched labels like projects. Do not touch. And Final Mix 3B, somewhere in that chaos. A picture of Lana taped inside a desk drawer, folded once down the middle, as if stared at, as if carried. That photo was never submitted into evidence. It came from a roommate who later threw it away, thinking it was just another old crush. But now it feels like something else. There's a term used in criminal psychology fixation echo. It refers to how stalkers or obsessed individuals leave repeated, ritualistic clues behind phrases, objects, colors, songs, things they associate with their target. It's not always logical, it's rarely clean, but it's deeply personal. And lipstick. That's about as personal as it gets. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra used crushed beetles for lip color or favored cinnabar from China. But obsession has never cared about formulas, just symbols. You think about Damon in prison. Quiet now. A man who once sang Verdi in 4 languages, reduced to muttering verses into cinder block walls. And Greg still free, still vague. Still just far enough outside the circle to keep slipping through. You wonder what Lana would say if she could speak now. Would she forgive? Would she name names? Or would she just shake her head and say, "I told you, keep your heart quiet"? Maybe that was her warning. Maybe that was her weapon. Maybe that's what got her killed. And in Ash Grove, every mirror with number scrawled across it is a reminder. Someone still thinks they deserve the last word. You don't realize how many mirrors are in your life until they start looking back at you funny. In Ash Grove, it begins as whispers. Gas station clerks muttering about seeing lipstick letters on freezer doors. A janitor at the high school finds a locker mirror tagged with number. A librarian uncaps a donated copy of Wuthering Heights and finds the same word scribbled in red between pages 148 and 149. No one's ever seen doing it, but someone's doing it. And it's not just the word, it's the exact same shade. Coral Kiss, discontinued since 2004. Vintage now, you can still find it on eBay, but it costs more than most people want to pay for a ghost story. So who's leaving these marks? Is it someone trying to make a point? Someone obsessed with Lana? Someone obsessed with Greg? Or Damon? Or even Brandon? Theories fly like darts in Jensen's pub on a Friday. And then, someone breaks the rules. A former classmate of Greg's, someone who once dated his roommate, posts a video online. Just a blurry clip, filmed on VHS-C back in 2001. No context. It's a house party. A guy's doing a bad job pretending to DJ, and in the background, Greg is talking to the camera guy. What he says makes your stomach drop. If you want to be remembered, you gotta leave a mark, something permanent, something personal. And then he holds up a tube of lipstick and smirks. Now, context matters. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was just drunken college talk. But paired with everything else, Lana's murder, Damon's confession, the graffiti, the whispers, it feels more like prophecy. Police revisit Greg's timeline. He swore he wasn't in Ash Grove the week Lana died, but that bus ticket said otherwise. And now, a new piece emerges, a gas station receipt, April 18th, 2002, 3:17 p.m. Greg's credit card, swiped in Ash Grove. 2 items, a bottled water and a disposable camera. Why lie? When questioned again in 2016, Greg says, "Oh, yeah, I visited a friend near there that weekend. Totally forgot. It wasn't important." But Lana was murdered that same afternoon. You feel it now, right? The lie, the tension in the room, the quiet unraveling of Greg Warren's, and yet still not enough to charge him. Because what if Damon really did go rogue? What if Greg really wasn't involved, just narcissistic and unlucky? Historians still argue whether Nero actually fiddled while Rome burned, or whether the story was invented by angry senators with good imaginations. But in Greg's case, it's hard to tell where ego ends and guilt begins. Let's rewind one more time. The lipstick, coral kiss. Forensic specialists say it was applied after Lana died. The smear patterns suggest the killer was calm, not frantic, not rushed. A slow, deliberate gesture. Damon had said he wrote it in panic, that he thought it was artistic, that it fit the moment. But now you question that, because Damon was never cool under pressure. He failed exams, missed flights. His professors described him as a genius with low resilience. One said, Damon was a storm in a suit jacket. Could he have written that message so cleanly, or was it already there? Some fringe theorists now suggest that Lana was marked before she died, that the word wasn't written in the heat of violence but before the first blow landed, maybe even while she was still alive. You can't prove it, but the forensic inconsistencies stroke direction. Pressure patterns open that possibility, and suddenly, it's not just a message, it's a performance, a title card. The way a director fades in a name before the scene begins, which brings you back to Damon. In prison, a guard reports that he started humming again. Not singing, just humming. One tune, over and over, no lyrics, just a gentle, eerie melody. Eventually, a musicologist listens in and recognizes it. It's from Puccini's Tosca. The aria is called Vici d'arte, I lived for art. It's a song of regret, a confession, or maybe a justification. You start to ask, was Damon ever the main actor in this play, or was he just the voice? And Greg, the writer. Someone once said serial killers sign their work, but sometimes manipulators do too. Only they don't sign in blood, they sign in silence, in bad memories, in smear campaigns, in mirrors. And the lipstick keeps showing up. At the bowling alley, at Lana's high school, at the church where her funeral was held. It's always the same word, always the same shade, always anonymous. Police set up cameras, hidden ones, but whoever's doing it is careful, smart, patient, maybe even a local. Or maybe it's more than one person now. Because obsession spreads, whispers become culture. And Lana's death, it's no longer a case file, it's a ritual, and at its center is a void, one that 3 men danced around like moths circling a flame. And still, no one's charged. Still, no one confesses. Still, the town watches, waiting for the day that someone, finally, leaves a new word on the wall. You wake to another mirror, not yours this time, but a gas station bathroom on the edge of Ash Grove, cracked tile and all. The word is there again. Number-one written in that unmistakable, coral-colored curve. The employees don't even flinch anymore. They just wipe it down and mutter to each other like it's the price of doing business here. Like Lana Carter's ghost signed a lease no one can break. But something's different this time. Because the town finally gets its first real break in years, an off-duty officer, fueling up late, catches a glimpse of someone slipping out of the restroom. A figure in a hoodie, hands in pockets, walking like they don't want to be remembered. He notes the license plate, follows just long enough to write it down. The plate leads to a rental car, rented in Eugene. to a woman. Now, that's new. You didn't expect this turn, did you? Neither did anyone else. Police track her down. Mid-30s, quiet, works its support for a credit union. Clean record, no obvious connections to Lana Carter or any of the men in the case. But when questioned, she admits it. She wrote it. Not once, not twice, multiple times. She says she's not crazy, says she's not violent, says she just relates to Lana, relates to her story. Her name is Amy Lowell, and she's been following the case since 2014. When she first heard about it on Ash Grove After Dark, she felt drawn to it. She says, in a way she couldn't explain. Bought the same lipstick, started making pilgrimages, first once a year, then more. She calls it activism, a form of protest. I didn't want her to be forgotten. She tells investigators, not the way the court forgot her, not the way the town tried to move on like she was just a headline. They ask if she knew Damon. She didn't. Greg. She says she recognized him from the forums. Claims she once messaged him years ago asking questions. He never replied. When they search Amy's apartment, they find dozens of printed documents, newspaper clippings, trial transcripts, the infamous party video, the podcast audio on a labeled USB, and above her desk, a single image of Lana Carter, printed and framed. Beneath it, handwritten in red ink, she was never yours to hurt. And now, the case goes national again. Because this isn't just murder anymore, it's a movement. A moment where obsession and empathy blur. Some say Amy's unstable, a copycat, using someone else's pain to make herself feel powerful. Others call her brave. A one-woman crusade for remembrance in a system that favors doubt over resolution. Historians still argue whether Joan of Arc was divinely guided or deeply schizophrenic. But in Amy's case, the lines are fuzzier. She isn't hearing voices. She isn't building shrines. She's just haunted. And you wonder, are we all? When asked why she chose Numberone, Amy shrugs. It felt right, she says. I think that's how he saw her, and how we should have seen her. The public eats it up. Talk shows, interviews, Reddit AMAs. But in the background, investigators keep looking at something she said, something small. A throwaway line in her first interview. She kept checking the cameras, didn't she? That part always stuck with me. It's not public knowledge. Only Lana's co-worker and the original detectives knew about the camera checking habit. It was never released, never aired, never printed. So how did Amy know? She says she must have read it somewhere. But they press harder. She doesn't crack, but it raises the question, is Amy more than just a fan? Is she connected to Greg or Damon or someone else? A new forensic team re-examines the old video files from Lana's workplace. They enhance the audio, clean the static, and for a few seconds, they pick up something strange. Lana's voice, low but clear, speaking to someone just out of frame. You again. Didn't I tell you this is harassment? Then footsteps, the sound of the front doorbell, the clip ends, the timestamp. 2 days before her murder, they match the shadowy silhouette to Greg Warren. Broad shoulders, tall, and most notably, the way he scratches the back of his neck with his left hand, a habit seen in the college party video. It's not enough for a charge, but it's enough to reopen the investigation. Greg's lawyers scream media bias. They say Amy's stunt poisoned the public. They say the evidence is circumstantial, biased, old, and maybe they're right. But the court of public opinion has changed. Brandon Wells, remember him, makes a rare statement. In a letter to the Ash Grove Tribune, he writes, I never ordered anything. I never asked anyone to hurt her, but I failed to protect her, and that will haunt me for the rest of my life. For some, it reads as admission. For others, it's the first human thing he's ever said. You sit now in Jensen's pub, back room lit by those flickering neon dart signs. Someone throws a perfect bullseye. The crowd cheers, but behind the bar, the same photo of Lana, same framed darts, same quiet, except now, someone's added a sticky note beneath it in neat black marker. One in our hearts, always. This time, no lipstick, no red, just ink. And maybe that's enough for now. You think it's over. After Amy Lowell's arrest, well, detainment. Really after Brandon's open letter. After the renewed energy around the case, there's a lull. The kind that makes you think maybe this whole thing will finally fade into something manageable, something you can put in a box, label unsolved, and file in the back of your memory like the rest of the world seems to want to. But Lana won't stay quiet. She never has. In early 2017, a new name surfaces: Eli Maddox. He's a digital archivist, not a detective, not a journalist, just a guy who spends too much time uploading old forum threads to public repositories. He's also the one who uncovers something buried even deeper than those bullseye talk posts, a subdomain, offline since 2003, backed up by accident on a corrupted zip drive. It was part of a forgotten community called Throwzone, a darts fan site that catered to semi-professional players across the Pacific Northwest. And on that site, a personal blog, user D1 Greg. Yes, that Greg. It's not a confession, not in the traditional sense, but it is revealing. One entry, dated March 30, 2002, just weeks before Lana's murder, reads, "I watched her win again tonight. No smile, no gratitude. She throws like it's just math. No heart, no art. I don't even think she knows she's being watched." It's followed by a crude poem, #1 in stats, but not in soul. Some queens wear crowns made only of control. You sit with that. It's not proof, but it's something. Eli submits the blog to Ashgrove PD. They confirm it. Yes, it belonged to Greg. And yes, the timestamps line up. Greg is questioned again. He says, "That was a persona, a dumb phase. I was writing poetry back then everyone was edgy in college. And you know what? He's right." Historians still argue whether Edgar Allan Poe's creepy genius came from opium or heartbreak. But either way, weird writing doesn't make you a killer. Still, it adds fuel to a fire that never quite goes out, especially when another forum post is found, this one from April 16th, 2002. Sometimes the math works out. The subtraction is clean. Thursday is subtraction day. Thursday. Lana was killed on a Thursday. Even the police get quiet at that one. Greg's attorney calls it coincidence masquerading as narrative. But you feel it. Something isn't coincidence. Something is compulsion. Meanwhile, Amy Lowell gets released without charges. She's banned from Ashgrove. Though, legally, she can't come within 50 miles of the city limits. Her last Instagram post before deleting her account is a black square with a single line of text. She didn't get justice, but she got echoes. You don't know whether to find that comforting or terrifying. The town tries to pivot. A local brewery names a new lager after Lana, the Bullseye Blonde. There's a fundraiser for a women's self-defense scholarship. Lana's mother declines to attend, but sends a short note. "Thank you for keeping her name honest." And then, like clockwork, another twist. A man comes forward, anonymous, but credible. Says he worked briefly with Greg in Sacramento in 2005. Says Greg once got drunk at a company retreat and confessed not to the murder, but to the manipulation. He said he sent someone just to scare her, to shake her. Said he knew she was arrogant enough not to lock her door. The quote matches what Damon said in his confession years earlier. Just to scare her, just a warning. And suddenly, the story you thought you knew bends again. What if Greg never intended for Damon to kill her? What if it really was just meant to scare? What if Damon improvised? Historians still argue whether Judas betrayed Jesus for silver or for disillusionment. But in cases like this, motive isn't clean. It's smeared. Like lipstick on drywall. You start to picture the moment. Greg, full of resentment, gassing up Damon with poetic nonsense and veiled threats. Damon, lonely, gullible, theatrical, interpreting it all as an invitation to make tragedy. Lana, caught in the middle of a script she never asked to star in. And Brandon, still on the sidelines, still shadowed by suspicion, even after being cleared. He moves again, changes his name, lives in Idaho now, running a bait shop near Coeur d'Alene. Reporters find him once, but he refuses to speak. Says only, "I wake up every day thinking about what I could have done differently." That's not guilt, that's grief. Maybe you're back at the mural now. Someone's added a candle holder. No names, just a bronze dish that catches wax tears. Locals say a woman in sunglasses comes by once a week, leaves a fresh candle, lights it, walks away. No one knows who she is. Some say it's Amy, others say it's Lana's cousin. One kid even insists it's Lana's ghost, wearing a disguise. You half smile, but then you turn, and for just a second, you see it too. A woman at the edge of the mural, face turned, coat collar high. And as the wind picks up, something falls from her hand. You step forward and pick it up. It's a lipstick tube. Coral kiss. Still warm, you stand frozen. The lipstick in your hand feels absurdly real, heavier than it should be, like it's soaked with something more than pigment, maybe memory, maybe guilt, maybe just the pressure of everything that's come before. But you open it anyway. The shade is unmistakable. Coral kiss, the same color found on the wall behind Lana Carter's body, the same smeared word repeated in bathrooms, windows, notebooks, and rumor, the same hue from a cosmetic line that died in 2004 just like her. So what now? You take it to the police. Of course, they're polite, curious, but cautious. It's not evidence. They remind you it's an object, one of many, could be anyone's, could be planted, could be part of a cruel performance or just a coincidence. But you see something they don't, because when you turn the tube in your palm, you notice a faint inscription etched into the metal casing. Just 2 words, so tiny you almost miss them. Try again. Your skin chills, because that isn't Lana's voice. That's his Greg Warren. And suddenly, you realize he never stopped playing. This was never about money, never even about romance. It was always about control, the slow drip of power that comes from being the man behind the curtain, pulling strings, twisting narratives, leaving just enough behind to keep the story going forever. Historians still argue whether Shakespeare wrote all his plays alone or borrowed liberally from unknown co-authors, but in Greg's twisted theater, there's no debate. He wrote the whole thing, cast his roles, directed the death, and now he's workshopping sequels. A judge grants a limited reinvestigation into Greg's involvement, citing new material evidence of symbolic and psychological manipulation. It's not a murder charge, not yet, but it opens the door. Greg's response? He vanishes, drops off the grid, deletes his social media, vacates his Sacramento apartment, abandons a perfectly set dinner table with a single tulip in a cracked vase. It's like he evaporates, but not before leaving one final message and email sent to Eli Maddox, the archivist who found the throw zone logs. Subject line: applause. Body. You finally found Act 2. Don't forget, tragedy always needs an audience. Signed. G. The email is traced to a public library in Bakersfield. Security footage shows nothing. The logbook is blank, but at the terminal where the email was sent, the staff later find a book left deliberately, open to a chapter titled Doublespeak and Dramaturgy. Inside, tucked between the pages, is a printed photo. It's of Lana, from behind, throwing darts. And at the bottom, in the same sharp black marker used under her mural. She missed once. You don't know what to do with that. The police certainly don't. They issue a new bulletin for Greg Warren, person of interest, wanted for questioning, no charges, just a shadow with a smirk. And Damon, still in prison, still humming. But now his songs are different, longer, clearer. One guard claims he's been composing an opera, calls it Number 1. In it, the lead character isn't Lana. It's Greg, the villain, the prophet, the manipulator behind the music. No one knows how Damon knows that name. No one's told him Greg's disappeared, but he sings about it anyway. He left the stage, but not the show. His words are ink. His hands, shadow. Historians still argue whether ancient Greek tragedy was meant to teach morality or just give people an excuse to cry in public, but whatever the purpose, the Lana Carter story now is a tragedy, with acts, arcs, and a chorus of the damned humming in the background. Ashgrove tries to breathe again. The mural stays. The dartboard at Jensen's stays. The whispers don't. Not really, but there's a new movement now. Quiet, but persistent. People start carrying Coral Kiss lipstick again, not to vandalize, not to scare, but as a symbol, a message. They leave it in lockers, in cafes, on shelves at the pharmacy. They don't write words anymore. They just leave the tube, silent, unopened, watching. And over time, a new phrase emerges in forums, in podcast comments, on paper scraps taped to lampposts. I see you. Number 1, a tribute, a warning, an acknowledgement. And somewhere out there, if he's still out there, Greg Warren is watching, reading, smiling, because that's all he ever wanted. To be seen, to shape a story, to hold the ending hostage. And the cruelest twist he might have, unless someone else finishes it first. By now, you're starting to forget where the story began. Not because the details are fading, but because there are too many of them now. Too many threads, too many echoes, too many lipstick tubes and shadowy figures and phrases that loop like a broken record. And yet, despite all that chaos, one image remains perfectly still in your mind. Lana Carter, standing at a dartboard, calm, focused, throwing like it's just math, just rhythm, no heart, no drama. Until it wasn't. In 2018, the Ashgrove After Dark podcast posts one final episode. Not about Greg, not about Damon, not even about Brandon. It's titled simply, "What If She Knew?" And it asks a question no one had dared before. What if Lana had figured it out? What if she knew she was being watched? What if her checking the cameras wasn't paranoia, but preparation? The host, Erica Meeks, claims to have found something, an undeveloped roll of film in a box of Lana's personal belongings that had been long buried in an evidence locker marked Mios. She has it developed. There are 21 photos, the first 20, random. Lana at the fair, Lana's cat, a half-finished puzzle, Brandon asleep on the couch, normal life stuff. But the last frame, it's blurry, snapped at night, through a window, but in the distance, clearly illuminated by porch light, is a man standing on the sidewalk, watching the house, unmoving. You can't see his face, but you can see the outline of what he's holding, a notepad and a pen, just watching, planning. Historians still argue whether the Voynich manuscript is a code, a hoax, or a lost language, but this photo, it's a message written in dread, a message Lana may have left behind on purpose. Police confirm the timestamp lines up with her journal entry. April 10th, 2002. Saw him again. Didn't run this time. Just watched. It's like he wants me to know. That line had been dismissed for years, assumed to be about a creepy customer or maybe Brandon during a fight. But now, it lands different. They re-interview Brandon. He says he didn't know about the photo, says Lana never showed it to him. He's shaken, legitimately. For once, you believe him. So who was the man? Greg, probably. But without a face, it's still not enough. Then finally, something new. An old friend of Greg's, from his dorm years, reaches out to the DA, says he has something, says he's been thinking about it for too long, says it won't let him sleep. He turns over an old computer hard drive, buried deep inside it. A set of drafts, half poems, half scripts, unfinished, unnamed. But one stands out. It's a screenplay fragment, titled Number 1. And it opens with this line, "A girl who's too good, too focused, doesn't see how much she's being watched. She thinks the game is darts, but the real game is her." Chills run down your spine. The file is dated March 25th, 2002, weeks before Lana died. This time, the DA doesn't hesitate. They reopen charges, not for murder, but for conspiracy to incite premeditated harm. Enough to detain, enough to search, enough to drag Greg Warren back from wherever he's hiding. If they can find him, a new task force forms. They trace bank cards, burner phones, library check-ins. He's smart, but he's not invisible. Eventually, they find a receipt from a truck stop in Montana, dated just days before Lana's birthday. The cashier remembered him. Guy with a voice like a preacher. She says, bought out a coffee. Left a note in the tip jar. What did the note say? 2 words. Still watching. Creepy. Yes. Criminal. Barely. But it gets him on the radar. Interpol is alerted. So is the FBI. And yet, even now, you feel like Greg is still 5 moves ahead. Like he wants this chase. Like it's the final scene in a play he's been writing in his head for 2 decades. But the audience, that's changing. Because now, people aren't just listening. They're looking. And not just at Greg. They're looking at patterns, at systems, at the cracks that let someone like him walk the line between fan and threat, artist and predator, ghostwriter and orchestrator. People start sharing their own stories. Women, mostly, targeted, followed, not believed. The hashtag trends, number 1, 2. And suddenly, Lana's story isn't just about Lana. It's about all of them. All the women marked by someone else's narrative. Reduced to objects, archetypes, dead ends in someone else's script. But this time, they get to write back. At Lana's memorial wall, someone adds a new phrase. Not lipstick, not marker. It's burned into a wooden plaque. She was not your story. The wind carries the words like a warning. And Greg, wherever he is, he hears it. You're sure of it, because the lights have come up, and the audience isn't clapping anymore. They're standing, watching, waiting. By now, Lana Carter isn't just a memory. She's a movement, a reckoning, a mirror. People are tired of looking into, but can't quite turn away from. Ash Grove has changed. Quietly, uneasily, the town council finally removes the old wooden bench near Tamarack and 6th where legend had it. Greg once sat for hours, watching, not out of respect, but because people kept leaving lipstick tubes under it, candles, letters, even one full, unopened bottle of Coral Kiss, sealed in a plastic case with the words, "For the next one who tries." And still, no Greg. It's 2020 now, 18 years since Lana's murder. A year of masks, quarantines, and headlines too heavy to hold. But even amid global chaos, her name resurfaces again because the FBI's cyber division, working with digital archivists and behavioral analysts, gets a hit, an IP address, bouncing through 6 VPNs, logging into an old email alias traced back to Greg Warren. The message, just a quote, "It is finished when the crowd stops watching, N1." That last part, N1, not a name, not a signature, a brand. You see what he's doing now? He's not running, he's rebranding, turning number 1 into an identity, not Lana's, but his, not a tribute, a takeover. He's trying to erase her by becoming her, and that's when people snap. Because the world has changed since 2002, and Lana Carter quiet, focused, bullseye. Lana never wanted this stage, but now she owns it. A group of women investigators, coders, writers, trauma specialists start an initiative called Project Lana. Their goal, track digital ghosts, the people who manipulate behind screens, the ones who whisper just to scare her, the ones who think anonymity is immunity, and it starts working. More Greg-like figures come to light, and in early 2021, one more puzzle piece finally locks into place. A woman in St. Paul, Minnesota, contacts local police. She'd been renting out her guest house on and off for a few years. One tenant, in particular, stood out, quiet, paid in cash, claimed to be a writer working on a screenplay about grief. He left behind a single item, a copy of the complete works of Sophocles. Inside the back cover, a printout, an early draft of something titled The Number One Project. It's not a play, it's a manifesto, broken into sections: character, plot, control, descent, witness. It reads like a checklist for dismantling a woman's life publicly, slowly, and with plausible deniability. It talks about narrative architecture, about manufacturing chaos, about letting the audience shape the meaning. One line reads, "If she sees you, you've failed. She must feel watched, not see the watcher." Another, "Pain is only real when others observe it." And finally, to be number 1 is to own the story. You feel sick. Police confirm the fingerprints on the inside cover match Greg Warren. But by the time they arrive in St. Paul, he's gone. Again, historians still argue whether ancient scribes intentionally left blank pages in sacred texts to leave room for God, but here, Greg is the one writing blanks so others will fill them with fear. Except not everyone's afraid anymore, because Project Lana releases a public database, anonymized, secure, but searchable, a platform for people to share experiences of psychological tracking, digital stalking, narrative manipulation, and it's staggering. Thousands of entries within months, a map of silent terror now seen. Meanwhile, Ash Grove holds its first memorial truth vigil for Lana. No candles this time, no flowers, just darts. Dozens of women step up, one by one. Each throws a dart at the mural wall. Each one hits the board. Each one writes a name below their dart, not of a killer, but of a survivor. And beneath them all, a plaque, brushed steel, engraved with her full name. Lana Rose Carter, 1987 to 2002. You can't miss if you don't doubt. A phrase once said in jest, now a war cry. Brandon attends the vigil, quietly, from the back. No press, no applause, just silence. When a reporter tries to corner him, he says, "I lost her once. I won't steal her again by speaking louder than she would." He walks away, but then, just as the vigil ends, a woman steps to the microphone. She's older, calm, poised. No one recognizes her at first. Then someone whispers, "Lana's cousin." She holds a lipstick tube in one hand, a dart in the other. She says, "He wanted her to be a story, but she was a person, and people don't end when you write them out." Then she throws bullseye. The crowd breaks into soft, stunned applause. Not celebration, recognition, because it's not over. Greg's still out there, but so is something stronger. Clarity. The power to see through the fog, to name the patterns, to rewrite the ending. And somewhere maybe a dusty motel in Idaho, or a dark corner of a campus library. Greg Warren sees the vigil replayed online. He doesn't comment. He doesn't dare, because for the first time in 2 decades, he's not the one being watched. You always assume this story would end with a trial, a verdict, a final knock on a judge's desk, and a sentence read aloud in a cold, echoing room. But that's not how this ends. Because Greg Warren was never chasing closure. He was chasing control. He wanted the chaos to spiral, not stop, to feed itself, to live longer than Lana ever could. So instead of a verdict, what comes next is exposure. In 2022, a cybersecurity team working alongside Project Lana finally cracks a set of encrypted backups pulled from one of Greg's old cloud mirrors. Files uploaded years earlier under a dummy name, Ghost, typewriter fastmail. Inside, folders labeled like acts in a play. Act 1, she doesn't see. Act 2, he does nothing. Act 3, they doubt her. Act 4, she screams quietly. Act 5, he is gone. Each folder contains fragments, emails, scripts, photos, even voice memos, notes that sound like rehearsal instructions, monologues written in Greg's unmistakable prose. But most haunting is the audio file titled "She Missed Once." It's short, 37 seconds, a recording of Greg himself reading aloud. The audience forgets, but not the stage. She stood there like she was invincible. I waited, I watched, I warned. Her mistake was never missing the target. It was assuming no one else had aimed. Then silence. Then the soft click of a recording device shutting off. It is dated April 17th, 2002, the day before Lana was murdered. Investigators agree. This is the final proof of premeditation. Still, a murder charge is tricky. Greg didn't wield the weapon. He didn't cross the threshold. He didn't leave DNA. But conspiracy, intent, a pattern of manipulation leading directly to her death. Yes, a federal warrant is reissued. This time, it crosses international lines. Interpol releases a red notice. And Greg responds. Not with a video, not with a message, with a book, self-published, digital only, disguised under a pseudonym. The Merrick. Title, The Echo Game. It reads like fiction, thinly veiled. The names are changed. Lana becomes Rena. Greg is Caleb. Damon is the tenor, but the bones, the timeline, the death, identical. And the worst part, it's good, disturbingly well written, seductive, the kind of prose that pulls readers into complicity before they even realize it. Reviews are split. Some call it a brilliant psychological thriller. Others know exactly what it is, a confession disguised as art. But now, Greg's biggest mistake isn't the book, it's the bank account. Royalties begin rolling in, and the payment trail leads to a Ghost LLC, one tied to a small cabin rental in northern British Columbia. On a rainy morning in May 2023, authorities descend on that cabin. No sign of Greg inside, but under the floorboards, a laptop, still warm, open to a file called Final Draft. Texty. And the first line, if the hero dies, make the villain think he won. Then another file, goodbye, Lana. Wave. 32 seconds of silence. Then the faint sound of a dart hitting wood. That's it. That's all. No Greg. No body. Just that sound. And the sense he's still writing somewhere. Still watching. But here's what he didn't count on. Lana's name outlasting him, because her story is now required reading at multiple law schools. Project Lana has helped over 600 victims of digital manipulation. A new documentary, #1, The Woman. They couldn't erase premieres at Sundance and gets a standing ovation. And most important, at a high school in Ash Grove, the girls' dart team renames themselves, no longer the Ash Grove Aces. They are Lana's Line. Their motto, "We throw straight, we play fair, we see you." And they do. They see the signs. They teach awareness. They teach each other how to stay safe, but also how to reclaim space, how to write the story before someone else tries to, and maybe, finally, how to end it. Because one thing's for sure, Greg Warren may have written the first act, but the final chapter, that belongs to her. You return to Ash Grove one last time, not as a detective, not as a follower of the case, just as someone who needs to see where it all happened, where it all kept happening. You walk down Tamarack Drive with a sort of hush that feels earned. Every lawn trimmed too neatly, every house with its secrets tucked under the shutters, and there, on the left, is Lana's old house. It's been sold 3 times since 2002. The current owners planted a dogwood tree in the front yard, maybe to soften the memory, maybe to rewrite the view. But if you look just past the rose bushes, you can still see it. The subtle slope of the lawn, the spot where Brandon once dropped to his knees. You pause, and then you walk away, because it's not the house that matters anymore. It's the reach across town. The high school is having its championship darts tournament. Lana's Line is up by 3. The girls wear black jerseys with soft coral trim. The color is deliberate, a little defiant. You sit in the back. One girl steps up to the line, tiny, composed, with a steady breath and a tattoo on her wrist. Not a name, not a quote, just a small number 1. She throws, bullseye. No cheer, no swagger, just quiet confidence, a rhythm passed down. Historians still argue whether the Oracle of Delphi spoke in riddles or just coded metaphors to keep the powerful confused. But in Ash Grove now, there's no mystery. Lana Carter was murdered. Greg Warren built a fantasy from her blood, and yet he lost because his story didn't finish with him. It grew louder without him. They never found Greg. Some believe he died in the woods, alone, swallowed by his own myth. Others think he's still out there, watching vigil live streams, reading every hashtag, printing out articles that still whisper his name. But Project Lana remains active. Every year, they host a summit, Women in Tech, Law, Advocacy, and Trauma Recovery. They train law enforcement. They educate students. They don't try to mythologize Lana. They just restore her. A woman, a competitor, a daughter. Not perfect, not sainted, just real. The final keynote at the 2024 summit is delivered by Erica Meeks, the podcaster who first asked, "What if she knew?" She closes with this: "There are men who want to be the architect of a woman's silence." Greg Warren wanted to be that architect. But Lana never stopped speaking. She didn't scream, she focused. And in doing that, she taught us something. Silence isn't surrender, it's aim. The room goes still. A beat, then applause. The loud, rising kind. Because for the first time in over 2 decades, this isn't a story about a victim. It's about what we do next, back in Ash Grove. The mural fades in the summer sun. A few of the original paint strokes are chipped now. Someone suggests restoring it, maybe updating it with the newer photo, the one Lana's mother recently shared of her at 17, grinning after a tournament, smudged with chalk and pride. But the community votes no. They say leave it as it is. It's not about keeping the image fresh. It's about letting it stay, letting her stay. And then, one night, you get a message, an encrypted email, no name, no return. Subject line: I miss the silence before the throw. Attached is a photo, not of Lana, but of Greg, leaning against a wall, somewhere gray, maybe underground, maybe not even recent. There's no caption, no threat, just a timestamp. And 2 words typed at the bottom, no more. Is it real? A fake? A trick? You don't know, but you close the laptop. You step outside. And for the first time in this entire journey, you let the story go. Not Lana, not what she meant, but the chase. Because maybe that's how you beat someone like Greg. Not by finding him, but by refusing to follow. So you let it settle, not in the way unfinished stories usually fester in frustration, in doubt, in the gnawing ache of what's unsolved, but in understanding. You don't need to know where Greg Warren sleeps, or whether he sees Lana's face when he closes his eyes, or whether his story finally cracked him open from the inside. Because this story stopped being about him a long time ago. It belongs to her now, and to everyone who saw her not as a cautionary tale, but as proof that a woman's silence can be powerful, that presence can echo louder than absence, that a life, no matter how carefully someone tries to script over it, can resist erasure. You return to Jensen's pub one last time. They've replaced the back dartboard. It's newer now, digital, with LED scorekeeping and auto-calibration. But above it still hangs the photo, Lana, post-win. Chin up, eyes squinted with focus. The framed darts are still there, slightly dulled from age, but centered. And beneath it, someone's added one more plaque. It says, if you're aiming to make a mark, make it honest. Outside, the wind picks up, warm, late summer. And for the first time, no mirrors are found with messages scrawled across them. No lipstick, no graffiti, no shadowy figures waiting behind parked cars. Just air, just quiet, a peaceful, earned kind. Because Greg's game was always built on repetition, on fear, on seeing how long he could hold the room captive. But now, the room has left him, and the story, it lives on. But not in fear, not in cultish obsession. It lives on in laws named after her, in advocacy programs, in the shift of how we talk about indirect violence, how we start to notice the warning signs in just a joke or it was only meant to scare her, how we see Lana Carter not as a tragedy, but as a turning point. And you're not haunted anymore, because ghosts can only haunt what's unfinished. And this story, however jagged, however unresolved in the eyes of the law, is finished in truth. It ends with survivors throwing straight, with voices louder than whispers, with silence that doesn't shrink but steadies. So you walk away from Ash Grove, one final glance at the mural, at the dartboard, at the last candle melted to the base. You don't need to look back again, because the truth didn't fade. It took aim, and it stayed. So now, as the lights dim and the noise slips from your mind, I want you to take one slow, deep breath. Let the echoes of this story, its twists, its pain, its persistence gently fall away. You're safe now. Nothing's chasing you. No shadows behind your mirror. No riddles to decode. Just stillness, the kind that only comes when a long story finally exhales. Maybe Lana never got justice in the way we like to define it. No gavel, no last word, but maybe what she got was stronger than justice. She got continuance. She lives on not in fear, not in silence, but in movement, in awareness, in every young girl who learns to trust her instincts, to document the stare, to speak up when the story starts to feel off. She lives in every dart thrown straight, in every whisper reclaimed, in every hand that holds coral, kissed not as a threat, but as a tribute. So wherever you are right now, curled under blankets, half awake, half dreaming, know this, you're not carrying her story alone. We all carry it now. And as you drift towards sleep, let the weight of it rest. Because the audience is gone, the script has closed. And Lana Carter, she never missed. She just needed the world to see what she'd aimed at all along. Sleep well now. You're safe. She's seen.